This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, March 11th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Former President Donald Trump's using the death of a Georgia nursing student to hammer President Biden's border policies. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Republican Senator Katie Britt explains using a years-old sexual trafficking reference in her State of the Union rebuttal. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The latest on a deadly military helicopter crash over the Texas-Mexico border. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. military says forces started landing at the embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, Sunday. I'm Julie Walker.
Electric vehicle growth in the U.S. appears to be putting on the brakes, not to mention a low-voltage stock performance for Tesla. I'm Peter Schacknow.
The Department of Justice now getting involved in a Boeing plane incident, and gum. It's not just for blowing bubbles anymore. All ahead on America in the Morning. Both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump were campaigning over the weekend, and the two 2024 frontrunners spent the day in Georgia Saturday, taking aim at the other. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
My lifetime has taught me to embrace the future of freedom and democracy. And Trump and I have a very different value set, if it isn't obvious already.
Together we will turn the page forever on the miserable nightmare of the Biden presidency.
Former President Donald Trump's using the death of a Georgia nursing student to hammer President Biden's border policies.
What Joe Biden has done on our border is a crime against humanity and the people of this nation for which he will never be forgiven. That's a very hard thing. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it fast. We're going to have the largest deportation in history. But what a tremendous shame that this could have happened in our country.
Both campaigning in Georgia this weekend, former President Donald Trump focusing on the death of nursing student Laken Riley.
Laken Riley would be alive today if Joe Biden had not willfully and maliciously eviscerated the borders of the United States and set loose thousands and thousands of dangerous criminals.
President Biden in Atlanta on migrants.
Donald Trump calls them vermin, poisoning the blood of America. No one should ever doubt where my heart is. Unlike Donald Trump, on my first day in office as president, I introduced a comprehensive plan to fix our immigration system, secure our border, provide a pathway for citizens, for dreamers.
Saying he'll work to secure the borders while creating legal pathways for those who are here.
Farm workers, essential workers who helped us through the pandemic and are part of the fabric of our community.
In an interview with MSNBC, President Biden says he does regret using the term illegal rather than undocumented when he mentioned the murder suspect in his State of the Union address. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Republican Senator Katie Britt's rebuttal to President Biden's State of the Union has made headlines for what critics in her own party admit was an awkwardly delivered speech, as well as a reference to an incident of human trafficking which occurred years ago, seemingly mentioned to appear as if it had happened during Joe Biden's presidency. John Stolnis has that story from Washington.
The freshman senator from Alabama explaining a reference from her speech in which she told the tale of a then 12-year-old girl who was the victim of sex trafficking. Fact checkers note the incident happened during George W. Bush's presidency, and critics say Senator Britt made it appear as if it occurred more recently to further her attack on the current president.
She had been sex trafficked by the cartels starting at the age of 12. She told me not just that she was raped every day, but how many times a day she was raped.
Britt appeared on Fox News Sunday, attempting to clarify, first talking about Biden's immigration policies during his first 100 days and comparing it to meeting this now woman on a trip to the border.
And when I was there, I asked for the real, unvarnished truth. I wanted to sit down. I asked the Border Patrol agents. I asked the people there. I asked the victims, previous victims of drug cartels, tell me what it's like. Tell me what we need to do. Tell me what we need to know.
Britt said she wasn't trying to make it seem like the plight of this woman was President Biden's fault.
Well, I very clearly said I spoke to a woman who told me about when she was trafficked when she was 12. So I didn't say a teenager. I didn't say a young woman, a grown woman, a woman when she was trafficked when she was 12.
Britt's speech was panned by Democrats and Republicans alike for being overly dramatic and inauthentic, and spoofed on Saturday Night Live with actress Scarlett Johansson playing the senator.
My husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's speech, and what I saw was the performance of a permanent politician. But me, I'm not performing. I'm not.
In a tweet thread on X, Republican Congressman Chip Roy says GOP leaders made a mistake by, quote, throwing a freshman senator to the wolves by asking her to give the rebuttal, knowing she had not yet given even a Senate speech. Roy said her speech distracted from the message, allowing Democrats to make her speech the story and not the crisis along the southern border. John Stolnis, Washington.
The nation of Haiti in chaos. U.S. military steps in. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. At the National Weather Map this morning, AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy has your forecast.
In the Northwest, there have been a series of systems moving into the region. There will be some lingering rain and snow showers from one of those recent storms from Northern California into Idaho and Montana. Meanwhile, the last of this series is going to move into the Northwest later today. This will spread rain to the coast from Northern California into Washington this afternoon, and showers will continue to spread eastward later in the day and tonight. As the system continues eastward, there'll be some colder air causing rain to change over to snow in the mountains. Portions of the Washington and Oregon Cascades could see 6 inches of snow later today and tonight, with more snowfall during the day Tuesday. The rest of the West will be dry under some amount of sunshine from central and southern California into Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. Meanwhile, a storm that brought a lot of rain to the eastern U.S. this weekend was exiting the northeast today, with snow continuing through the morning hours in a few places and lasting throughout the day across Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Some of those places could see another few inches of snow. Even with the recent storm moving away, the wind behind it is going to be strong and gusty through the eastern Great Lakes into the middle Atlantic and northeast. Gusts from this system have already been frequently in the 40 to 50 mile per hour range, and today some gusts near the coast from Maryland to Massachusetts can approach 60 miles per hour. With the recent rain, the ground is saturated and the wind could more easily knock down trees and cause some more power outages. Outside of this, the rest of the nation east of the Rockies is looking at quieter weather with plenty of sunshine for most. It'll be a cooler day across the southeast, but the chilly air that came with the storm this past weekend for many northern plains states will be quickly erased today, with temperatures 10 to 20 degrees warmer. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. We're learning more about the military helicopter crash at the Texas-Mexico border that left 3 dead. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest from the Lone Star State.
2 National Guard members and a Border Patrol agent were killed when the National Guard Lakota UH-72 helicopter crashed Friday afternoon along the Texas-Mexico border near Rio Grande City. 28-year-old Chief Warrant Officer Casey Frankowski, 30-year-old Chief Warrant Officer John Gracia, and Border Patrol agent Chris Luna identified over the weekend as the 3 killed. Some cartel members mocked the crash online, and politicians say the federal government needs to crack down harder on the cartels. Congressman Tony Gonzalez of Texas told Fox News he's long pushed for cartels to be labeled as terrorist groups.
President Trump came out and said it's time for us to label cartels as terrorist organizations. Let's take the gloves off and let's hold these criminals accountable.
The cause of the crash is under investigation, but officials with the military say it happened during routine operations while assigned to the federal Southwest Border Support Mission. It was a federal mission separate from Texas's Operation Lone Star, which was launched to deter illegal immigration. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. has flown in military forces to Haiti for embassy security and some evacuations as gang violence is out of control in the island's capital city. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
The U.S. military says forces started landing at the embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, Sunday, evacuating non-essential personnel. Gangs mainly control the neighborhood around the U.S. compound where violence has been rampant and deadly. Guyana's President Mohamed Irfan Ali, chairman of CARICOM, is inviting select world leaders, including the U.S., to meet.
The situation on the ground remains dire and is of serious concern to us.
Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who is facing calls to resign or form a transitional council, has been unable to return home after traveling abroad trying to secure a UN-backed police force with no success. I'm Julie Walker.
Tesla stock down double digits and a ban on TikTok. That and more in business headlines next. America in the Morning, back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A new study finds that workers are now becoming more remote. The New York Times reports that the average distance between an employee's home and their company offices has increased since the pandemic. Millennial workers, employees aged 30 to 39, are living the furthest away from their employers. A study by ResumeBuilder.com found that over half the employees surveyed that have been told to return to the office for work were either currently working or planning to look for a new job. For some who've been priced out of living in cities like New York, now have a better quality of life, either telecommuting or working a hybrid schedule. Driving in with news on Tesla, CNBC's Peter Schacknow has Monday Business.
One of the stock market's so-called Magnificent Seven, Tesla, isn't so magnificent anymore. Tesla was down 13.5% last week, and its stock has fallen 29% year to date, even as the overall market has raced to record highs. But this issue is not specific to Tesla. EV sales are still growing, but that growth has slowed dramatically, causing ripple effects throughout the auto industry. Mark Fields is the former CEO of Ford Motor.
You're seeing right now all the automakers delaying programs, shifting out the construction of plants. At the end of the day, the consumer has the issues around the cost. They have issues around the charging anxiety. And then the big issue is with the reduction in prices you've seen here in the U.S. and around the world. If you're a consumer that owns an EV right now, your vehicle is probably worth a lot less. And I think that weighs on consumers as they think about EVs going forward.
As for the rest of the stock market, it set several record highs last week, despite a bumpy ride, which saw the averages end lower for the week. John Mowry, Chief Investment Officer of NFJ Investment Group, is encouraged by the broadening of the rally away from just those large stocks.
If you look at the dispersion between the valuation and small caps today, you've got one of the biggest opportunities, I think, going back to the 1990s. If you go back to the October lows of just last year, small caps are up 25%, but the S&P is up 22%. So the small cap index is actually beating the S&P 500 off the October lows.
Following Friday's February jobs report, the key event for the markets this week is the release of the latest inflation data, with the Consumer Price Index out Tuesday and the Producer Price Index set for release on Thursday.
Peter, could we see Congress ban the app TikTok this week?
That's not happening quite yet, but it's closer than it's ever been. And so far, it's shaping up as a solidly bipartisan issue. Last week, the House Energy and Commerce Committee unanimously passed a bill that gives China's ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, 6 months to either divest itself or face a U.S. ban. Republican Representative Kathy McMorris Rodgers of Washington State is the committee's chair.
The unanimous 50-0 vote in committee underscores the national security concerns related to apps that are controlled by foreign adversaries. And that includes TikTok, but it is foreign adversaries that are using apps to collect, to manipulate, to surveil on Americans through the data that they are collecting.
The House is expected to bring the bill to the floor for a vote this week. It's the most serious challenge yet to TikTok, which has 170 million U.S. users. President Biden says he would sign it if it's passed by Congress.
Oh, we'll keep watching that one. CNBC's Peter Schacknow. When we return on America in the Morning, stuck on chewing gum? Donna Warder reports after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Justice Department is now investigating the January 5th incident where a door blew out on an Alaska Airlines flight in midair. A preliminary report by the NTSB says 4 bolts meant to hold the door in place were missing. CBS News is reporting that plane maker Boeing has come under increased scrutiny for what happened to the 737 MAX jetliner. And the DOJ is also looking into whether anything that led to the incident violates a prosecution agreement made with Boeing in 2021, which involved criminal charges stemming from 2 737 MAX crashes in Africa and Asia that killed a total of 346 people. Now we shift gears to the focus on chewing gum. Correspondent Donna Warder reports on decreasing sales and what gum makers are doing about it.
Here's something to chew on. During the COVID-19 pandemic, masks and social distancing made bad breath less of a worry. And market research firm Circana says chewing gum sales dropped by nearly a third in the U.S. Some manufacturers have left the gum market altogether, like the maker of Trident, Bubblicious, and Dentyne. Now, Mars, which owns the Wrigley brand, is trying to reposition gum as an instant stress reliever rather than a breath freshener. In January, Mars launched a global ad campaign promoting its Orbit, Extra, and Freedent gum as tools for mental well-being. Mars wants to attract 10 million new chewing gum users in the U.S. by 2030. I'm Donna Warder.
America in the Morning for Monday, March 11th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The latest on escalating conflict in the Middle East. I'm Clayton Neville.
Turkey's president has offered to host a peace summit between Ukraine and Russia. I'm Karen Chamas.
Emergency responders had to help people escape high waters from flooding in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm Julie Walker.
A man in the St. Louis area who's charged with shooting and killing his mother says it was a mistake. I'm Jackie Quinn.
2 Ohio women busted for their weekend at Bernie-style theft. I'm Pamela Burr.
2 senators want to put an end to shifting the clock.
Who were the big winners at the Oscars? I'm Kevin Carr.
Kung Fu Panda is the new box office champ. I'm Archie Zarletta with the latest.
Back after these messages. Beginning in the Northeast, AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy has the nation's forecast on America in the Morning.
The late week into the weekend brought a significant amount of rain and thunderstorms through a large part of the eastern half of the nation. And the last of that storm unit is exiting the Northeast today, with snow continuing through the morning hours in a few places and lasting through the day across Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Some places could see another few inches of snow. Even with the storm moving away, the wind behind it will be quite strong and gusty through the eastern Great Lakes into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Gusts from this system have already been frequently in the 40 to 50 mile per hour range, and today some gusts near the coast from Maryland to Massachusetts can approach 60 miles per hour. With the recent rain and the ground is saturated, we could see the wind more easily knock down trees and cause some power outages. Outside of this, the rest of the nation east of the Rockies is looking at quieter weather with plenty of sunshine for most. It'll be a cooler day across the southeast, but the chilly air that came with the storm this past weekend for many northern plain states will be quickly erased today. Southerly winds and plenty of sunshine will lead to temperatures 10 to 20 degrees warmer than yesterday, and in a few places, some records will be challenged this afternoon with highs in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That warmer trend will build eastward through midweek. In the west, there'll be some lingering rain and snow showers from a recent frontal system through northern California into Idaho and Montana. Meanwhile, another storm is going to be moving on the northwest shore later today. This will spread more rain to the coast this afternoon, with a few showers continuing to spread inland later today and tonight. That's the weather across America. Meridian, Mississippi is looking at a nice day with plenty of sunshine and a high of 65. There'll be more clouds in Pendleton, Oregon, with an afternoon shower and a high of 54. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. No signs that Israel plans to let up in its retaliation on Gaza. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports this comes as the U.S. begins the process of building a temporary port to get aid into the Palestinian enclave by sea as Israeli troops engage Hamas terrorists in the area on land, and the leaders of Israel and America are in dispute as to how to move forward.
The first equipment sent by the U.S. to Rafah to build a temporary port there arrived over the weekend. That port meant to allow for more humanitarian relief in an area where food is scarce and resources are few.
1.7 million Palestinians, 80% of their population, have been driven from their homes and displaced. Many of them end up in Rafah.
Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders on CBS's Face the Nation.
The truth is, whether you're a conservative Republican or a progressive, you do not want to see children in Palestine starve to death. So I think it's good politics, and it's the moral and right thing to do.
President Biden said during his State of the Union address last week that he's still pushing Israeli officials for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza to allow for more humanitarian relief, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledging to push forward. The Senate Intelligence Committee expected to talk about world threats this week on Capitol Hill as things escalate overseas. Republican Senator Marco Rubio spoke with CBS.
Whether it's Hezbollah and up in the north of Israel, whether it's what's happening in Gaza, whether it's what's happening with Yemen, the risk of conflict is very real. It's a dangerous and tenuous situation. There's no doubt about it.
Netanyahu reacting to President Biden's claim that he's hurting more than helping with Israel's continued retaliation. The prime minister says that's not true and is seemingly still committed to eliminating Hamas entirely. In a sign of continued escalation, U.S., French, and British forces took down dozens of drones over the weekend in the Red Sea after Houthi rebels targeted destroyers in that area, a common occurrence since last November. I'm Clayton Neville.
As the war between Russia and Ukraine continues, the leader of Turkey has floated the idea of hosting a summit between the leaders of Kyiv and the Kremlin. As correspondent Karen Shamas reports, Poland is also speaking out in a positive way regarding having NATO forces potentially get involved.
Turkey's president has offered to host a peace summit between Ukraine and Russia. Speaking at a joint news conference, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan told reporters that he hoped Russia would be on board with the idea. We are also ready to host a peace summit in which Russia will also be included. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said any peace negotiations must align with a 10-point plan, which includes the restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity and the withdrawal of Russian troops. Zelensky's visit to Turkey came as he continues to press other nations for more munitions and weaponry to drive back Russian troops in the Donetsk and Kharkiv regions.
I think the strike is yet another reminder of how Russia continues to strike Ukraine every single day. And it's a reminder of Ukraine's need for air defense interceptors. And it's a reminder that the United States Congress needs to take action, as we have called on them to do, to support Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression.
Poland's foreign minister has brought up the controversial idea of sending NATO troops to Ukraine. Radek Sikorski said in Polish parliament that the presence of NATO forces is not unthinkable. He added that he appreciated the French president for not ruling out that idea. His comments are part of a larger European debate over how to help Ukraine, as Russia has gained some momentum on the battlefield and Kyiv is running low on ammunition. The US Congress is withholding aid that Ukraine says it critically needs to hold off the Russians. This has put more pressure on Europe to respond to the war that has shattered peace on the continent. I'm Karen Shamas.
It was a difficult weekend for many travelers due to soaking rains and tidal flooding. For the second time in 2 months, communities along New Hampshire's seacoast were hit hard by floods, shutting down roads due to the tidal surge. High tides also forced some road closures along coastlines of Maine and New Jersey. Over 100 flights were canceled at the Orlando International Airport in Florida, and more than 300 were delayed due to bad weather. Correspondent Julie Walker reports on record rainfall in Charleston, South Carolina, that stranded drivers, some who needed to be rescued.
Emergency responders had to help people escape high waters from flooding in Charleston, South Carolina Saturday after the National Weather Service reported record rain.
There were over 30 road closures downtown, and there were some cars that were that had
that had, I guess they went through some deep water and they stranded themselves.
Senior meteorologist Brian Adams.
That record amount was 3.63 inches. That's a calendar day. And that beat the old record of 1.43 set in 1948. So it was substantially, a pretty substantial record.
He also says high winds were an issue as well, blowing out windows and ripping off roofing at least 3 businesses. The Charleston Fire Department says it responded to at least a dozen incidents where vehicles were sinking. The department also helped relocate 13 people from vehicles or floodwaters. I'm Julie Walker.
What a bank teller never expected to see at the drive-up window. And cyber attack. Update on United Healthcare's processing network. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A Missouri man was arrested after he opened fire inside his home on someone he believed was an intruder. The man instead killed his own mother. Correspondent Jackie Quinn has more on the story.
According to the attorney for 25-year-old Jalen Johnson, he hasn't stopped crying since the shooting at their home in Olivet, Missouri. The lawyer tells local media Johnson believed his mother was an intruder as she tried to come in through a back door of the home at 7:30 in the morning Thursday. Johnson called 911 right away, and his girlfriend tried to help 56-year-old Monica McNichols Johnson, but she died at the scene. Johnson, a former college football player, is charged with manslaughter and armed criminal action. The lawyer said he kept a gun because he had been previously robbed. I'm Jackie Quinn.
This next item even left police scratching their heads with disbelief. Pamela Furr reports that 2 Ohio women are under arrest, accused of propping up a dead man in their car to withdraw hundreds of dollars from his bank account.
These 2 women are not related to Douglas Lehman, but lived with the 80-year-old in Ashtabula, a city about 50 miles from Cleveland. Now, police say the 2 allegedly found his body in his home and, with the help of a third person, propped him up in the passenger seat of the car so the teller at his bank could see him. Police Chief Robert Stell.
It's a first for all of us, I think, here. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. In an instance where somebody used a dead body to withdraw money from the bank. It's just very, very unusual.
Now, these 2 women withdrew $900 from his account, then drove Lehman to the hospital where they dropped off his corpse without identifying him or themselves. Police eventually located them. They identified the man and said he had died at the home. Both women, who each have a lengthy rap sheet, were charged with theft and gross abuse of a corpse. I'm Pamela Furr.
The American military's Osprey aircraft will return to flight after being grounded following a deadly crash in Japan. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports.
The November crash killed 8 Air Force service members, the second fatal incident for an Osprey in months and the 4th in 2 years. The military grounded hundreds of the aircraft, which can fly like a plane, before converting to a helicopter, blaming an unprecedented parts failure. The Navy says it has now put more attention on the Osprey's prop rotor gearbox, though officials say they still don't have a complete understanding of why it failed in the crash. It's also unclear exactly when Ospreys will be back to normal operations, given crews have not flown for more than 3 months, and it will take time to retrain them. Sagar Magani, Washington.
The Biden administration won a legal victory in its effort to reduce illegal immigration at the southern border. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports that for now, a federal judge in Texas ruled that the government can continue to accept 360,000 migrants a year from 4 countries, including Venezuela and Cuba.
U.S. District Judge Drew Tipton says Texas and 20 other states have not shown they suffered financial harm from a humanitarian parole program. Up to a total of 30,000 asylum seekers are allowed into the U.S. each month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Eliminating the program would undercut a broader policy that encourages migrants to use the Biden administration's preferred pathways into the U.S. or face stiff consequences. The states, led by Texas, argued the program is forcing them to spend millions on healthcare, education, and public safety for the migrants. An appeal seems likely. I'm Mike Hempen.
Well, many of us sprang forward this past weekend, but if 2 members of Congress have their way, we'd be locking the clock on daylight saving time. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford and Florida's Marco Rubio co-sponsored a bill that would make daylight saving time the permanent time in the U.S. Daylight saving time officially began Sunday at 2 a.m., and right now every state shifts their clocks twice a year between standard time and daylight saving, except for Hawaii and most of Arizona. Historically, daylight saving time was started in 1918 during World War I in an effort to save energy. United Healthcare's processing network was attacked over 2 weeks ago, and they still have not returned to peak performance. Some analysts say it could take months. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
According to a report on Reuters, United Health Group, the largest health insurer, is likely to need several months to make a full recovery from a cyber attack that has been one of the most disruptive attacks against America's healthcare infrastructure. Since the Black Cat hacking group breached the Change Healthcare unit on February 21st, Health United said it has been working to restore impacted channels and that some of its systems are returning to normal. While it has not provided a timeline for recovery, cybersecurity analysts say that it's likely quite far off. Chester Wisniewski, director at the cybersecurity firm Sophos, said the amount of disruption suggests they don't have alternate systems at the ready. It's already been 13 or 14 days, and that is already longer than I'd expect for a backup system to be spun up. The network processes about 50% of medical claims in the U.S. for around 900,000 physicians, 33,000 pharmacies, and 5,500 hospitals. Tell us what you think at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
In with a check of Monday sports on America in the Morning, here's our Robert Workman.
NBA on Sunday, the Bucks sank the Clippers 124-117 in the opener of an LA Hoops doubleheader. Damian Lillard scored 16 of his game-high 35 points in the fourth quarter. In the nightcap, Anthony Davis led the Lakers over the Timberwolves 120-109. AD put up 27 points, grabbed a season's best 25 rebounds, and added a career-high 7 steals. 76ers licked the Knicks 79-73, holding New York to the lowest scoring total in a game this season. Sixers coach Nick Nurse said they did it all on D.
We were physical. We were doing everything we were supposed to do. We turned them over 20-plus times. Basically, we were just fighting and executing the schemes really well.
Elsewhere, the Thunder rolled over the Grizzlies. OKC with the best record in the West. Pelicans soared past the Hawks to complete a perfect 3-game road trip. Wizards, Rockets, Pacers, and Nets won. College basketball, number 3 Purdue beat Wisconsin. 25 points for Zach Edey, who had his jersey retired after the game. The first 4 tickets to the Big Dance were punched over the weekend. Morehead State earned the automatic qualifier in the Ohio Valley Conference on Saturday, while Longwood won the Big South, Stetson took the Atlantic Sun, and Drake held off Indiana State in the Missouri Valley on Sunday. The Sun Belt and Southern Finals are tonight. Selection Sunday is 6 days away. NHL, the Islanders drilled the Ducks 6-1 for their 6th straight win. They move into a wild card slot in the East. Wins for the Wild, Oilers, Blackhawks, and Hurricanes. NFL quarterback news, the Steelers may have gotten a steal, signing Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal for the veteran minimum, while the quarterback collects $38 million from the Broncos, who cut him loose last week, 2 years into a 5-year contract. After getting a playoff win over the Eagles last year, Tampa Bay gives the big bucks to Baker Mayfield, $100 million over 3 years, half of that guaranteed. And the Patriots are sending Mac Jones to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick next month. The Jacksonville native will back up Trevor Lawrence. And the U.S. women edged Brazil 1-0 to win the inaugural CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup. Lindsey Horan with the winning goal. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, an Oscars recap after these messages. This is America in the Morning. There was no slap heard round the world like there was at the Oscars in 2022, but there were some unusual moments, which included a naked wrestler at the 96th Annual Academy Awards. Kevin Carr has a recap, which included a big night for the movie Oppenheimer.
And the Oscar goes to...
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Christopher Nolan Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer was the big winner at the Oscars last night, capturing 7 awards, including Best Picture and the first Best Director for Christopher Nolan.
Movies are just a little bit over 100 years old. I mean, imagine being there 100 years into painting or theater.
Cillian Murphy won Best Actor, and Robert Downey Jr. won Best Supporting Actor.
I'd like to thank my terrible childhood.
Oppenheimer did lose a handful of its 13 nominations. Best Supporting Actress went to Da'Vine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers.
And when I told you I don't see myself, you said, that's fine. We're going to forge our own path.
Poor Things was another big winner. It rallied early in the evening with wins for makeup production design and costume design. It also had a somewhat unexpected win for Emma Stone for Best Actress. Barbie, which was nominated 9 times, left with only 1 win, in spite of a show-stopping rendition of I'm Just Ken by Ryan Gosling. Billie Eilish ended up winning Best Song with What Was I Made For? 4-time host Jimmy Kimmel kept things light with only a few political jabs. Nothing disrupted the ceremony like the infamous slap of 2022, though Al Pacino did have a unique way of announcing Best Picture.
And my eyes see Oppenheimer.
And while there wasn't a streaker, John Cena stunned the crowd in his birthday suit when he introduced Best Costume Design.
Costumes, they are so important.
You kind of had to see it, but that's what the internet's for. I'm Kevin Carr.
Perhaps there are Oscar contenders from this weekend's movie offerings. A new #1 debuted in theaters. Entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
We could take down the chameleon together.
Kung Fu Panda 4 had a $58.3 million opening weekend domestically, according to studio estimates. It's the first big family movie to be released since Migration and Wonka in December.
In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets, but the darkest of them all may remain. The end of House Atreides.
Last week's top movie, Dune Part 2, had a strong second week with $46 million, putting it in second place. The horror movie Imaginary debuted in third place. Cabrini, about Catholic missionary St. Francis Xavier Cabrini, debuted in fourth. Bob Marley, One Love, is number 5. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
America in the Morning for Monday, March 11th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.